Hi, everybody. We're the Skeleton Crew, and today you have questions, and we've presumably got answers.
Sometimes.
We're going to get right into it, but first a few plugs, because trying to guess when this video is going to come out is an increasingly difficult task. But few things. One, if you like our videos in general, please like and comment on the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. We do get analytics, and we do know that there are new viewers every time we upload a video. So if every one of those new viewers subscribed to the Skeleton Crew, we'd have some more subscribers. I don't know how many. Some number.
If more people subscribe to the channel than were subscribed to the channel, then we will have more people subscribe to the channel.
This is how numbers work.
This is high tier scientific intellect here.
Due to the linear nature.
You've heard of girl
numbers.
math. This is paleontologist math.
Adding. Paleontologist math. 4 is large. Another note, we have an Etsy shop up now. We have pins available because we had pins left over from Midwest Gaming Classic that we didn't sell. And so we are trying to sell them all because there are too many of them for Amelia to just have them in her apartment forever now. And so we have an Etsy page. The supplies are limited. We are not going to make more pins. This is not a we are making pins now as a matter of course kind of situation. We may eventually choose to use this page again, but you cannot expect or presume that any of the pins currently available will stay available. So if you like the Skeleton Crew and you like some of our just more aesthetically pleasing or wackier designs, you should check out the Etsy. We'll have it linked in the description. There's some really great designs there. Go take a look, and if you like them, order them while you still can, because when they're gone, they're gone. Before we answer, when Olive Garden, when you're here, you're here.
When you're here,
you're gone.
When you're here, you're going to get food poisoning.
Yeah, I just for the record, I have never been to an Olive Garden.
Christ, no, neither have I.
Oh, I have.
Anyway, what?
That's
What
something. That's just something.
Well, I mean, like, I've been to many cheapo chain restaurants or whatever. Like, these are not cheapo, I know. But I've been to many restaurants of that approximate price point. It's specifically because it's the Italian one that I won't go to that one. I spent a lot of my childhood in an Applebee's or a TGI Fridays or a Chili's or something.
Really?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say a super amount, but, like, my family certainly didn't shy away from going, especially if we were, like, far from home and didn't know what good stuff around us was.
All of my chain restaurant experiences have been with Dalton.
This is true.
And Dalton can communicate my general feelings towards various chain restaurants.
Alex did share his ranking of them with me the other day.
What's the top?
Top is occupied kind of by both Cheesecake Factory and Longhorn Steakhouse.
I was very impressed with the Cheesecake Factory. And also Longhorn.
I've never been to a Longhorn.
Yeah, same.
I ranked Ruby Tuesdays after...
Ruby Tuesdays, Alex had the worst possible experience. It was a bad day at Ruby Tuesdays.
I had a bad time at Ruby Tuesdays.
I don't think I've ever been to a Ruby Tuesdays.
Don't go.
Oh, I have.
But Longhorn is, I think, my favorite of the chain steakhouses I've been to. Because I've been to Texas Roadhouse, Outback Steakhouse, and Lone Star, which all of those may be closed now.
Have you been to...
Longhorn is the best.
But have you been to Ruth's Chris?
No, and I refuse to as a matter of course, because the name is so bad.
I also have, and it was fine, but overpaying for a steak that I could do better at home.
Well, right.
They just were not around where I grew up. Like, it was not even an option.
The ones nearest
the wealth management.
Yes. How else would Berkshire Hathaway have a storefront in your hometown if it did not kick the Applebee's out?
These are mutually exclusive establishments.
All right. There are like McDonald's and Subways in my like.
Alex, there's also a Bentley dealership.
There are actually 2.
Yeah,
on the same
Alex,
street.
Mr. How hard is it to get a lobster Ruben?
I'm near the water. You can do that in Maine.
Were you wading into the water for all your family lobsters?
No, we were buying them from a fish market.
Yes. I prefer to say fishmonger because fish is one of 4 things you can monger.
What are the other 3?
Well, there's fear.
Here.
There's cheese. There's war. There's cheese.
Okay. All right. Let's dive on in.
Yes. Well, before we dive on in, I'm Dr. James Napoli. I'm a research instructor in the Department of Anatomical Sciences at Stony Brook University's Renaissance School of Medicine.
My name is Amelia Zietlow. I'm a PhD candidate at the American Museum of Natural History.
My name is Scott Johnston. I am a monger of fossils. No, I'm not.
You can't monger them.
I cannot. I can monger my fossils all I want because I am the fossil preparator and technician at Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology, but also because monger implies selling. I do not sell fossils. No, that is not what happens. That's against my code of ethics.
My name is Alex Rubenstahl, and I'm a PhD candidate at Yale University, and I'm also standing at the edge of your property in the tree line when you go to bed.
You
can't see me.
Music in the background.
No. If you look at me, I'll disappear. But you can see me out of the corner of your eye.
Just the eye shine.
Yeah, if you want to freak Alex out at camp, you can talk about eye shine.
Hey, you want to freak Alex out at camp?
I freaked myself out.
Freaked you out. Yeah, all right. It freaked me out too.
But I did it to myself. And who myself is Dalton Meyer. I'm also a PhD candidate at Yale University. And I have some advice to all of you, which is to become unmongerable. Also, as a side note, the villain in Iron Man 1, it's never stated, but his
Ironmonger.
Mm-hmm.
You can monger iron.
Well, maybe now you can. Maybe we're up to 6 things you can monger. I'm going to run for president. My platform is like Make America Monger again.
He, she, just a MAGA hat monger.
Yeah, we got to monger more things. Stop selling, start mongering. I feel like monger implies a form of aggression with how you sell it also.
A monger-only economy.
Like when you're a fishmonger, I feel like you're in a market yelling at people.
True.
Or you're just kind of passing fish back and forth.
Cheesemongers are so kind.
Say, cheesemongers are like the only peaceful mongers.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But like I think of the people at that market in Seattle, which is Pike, whatever it is, where the whole shtick is like you can come here and wait in a very long line to buy fish, and then when it's your turn, they'll yell at you and throw it at you, which is culture thought up by the utterly deranged.
Well,
but
why don't we monger some Q&As here?
Yes, let's monger.
We're question mongers.
We're answer mongers, actually.
Yes.
Our first question comes to us from Nickname. It is not what are the things you can monger. But
I want the record to show before we even answer it. I just pulled Nickname's name out of my butt for this. I wasn't looking at the Q&A document when I said it. I forgot he was number one. Well, hi, Nickname. How's it going?
It comes from Nickname. It's not about mongering, but it is about careers. And mongering is a kind of career. But the question is, what was the nail in the coffin that made you want to choose this career option? And Amelia, you're up first.
I like the particular phrasing of this question. I don't know. I mean, there's I would say there's like kind of 2 key points, I think. And the first would be like wanting to do research was definitely the Gecko internship that I had as an undergraduate. Like that was the first time I had done research ever, and I had no idea what to expect, and I really liked it. For paleo specifically, it was, I think, like the 2nd or 3rd meeting that I had with Carr, after I had mentioned that I wanted to take comparative anatomy because I wanted to maybe do the paleo thing. And it was just like, him and my other advisor told me that you get paid to go to grad school if you're doing research mostly, which I didn't know. And that's something that, it's something I never thought I'd be able to do because I didn't want to take out more loans. But I remember in this meeting, I don't remember exactly what brought it on, but Carr was addressing how like a lot of people are worried about paleo because there are no jobs, which is kind of true. But like, I don't know, he was just like, there's not a lot of jobs, but if you put the work in, like you can't do it. And it was like, that was it. Like it was just the right kind of motivation that worked for me in terms of wanting to do it, I guess. Apologies if I'm not coherent. I've had a very long day.
No, that was coherent.
Okay.
That was, yes.
Someone else go now.
Well, so for me, it was that I was one of those people who, as a very small child, was like, I want to be a paleontologist. And it was something that I had kind of carried with me most of my life. Once I got into high school, there were other things, other interests that I was like, oh, maybe I'd want to do this. I don't think there was ever a time where I wanted to do something not in the sciences. There's no career that really attracted me outside of the sciences. But I think, like many people who are interested in paleontology, I at some points thought about doing marine biology. I also was interested in potentially going into like epidemiology or virology at times. But what really settled it was that I had the opportunity in high school to do an internship over the summer with the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. They have a program called the Teen Science Scholars, which is like an intern program that they run every summer where they get high schoolers from across the state to come in and do stuff. And I went there and I had the opportunity to do field work at 3 different Pleistocene sites. One was the Snow Mastodon site in Snowmass, and then a couple others in Colorado. And being able to go do that and like do field work and work in collections for a summer really cemented in my mind, like, oh, I actually do want to do paleontology.
So for me, so I had always, like Dalton, I'd always wanted to be a paleontologist. And, there were times I thought about doing other things. As made fun of recently on Reddit, there was a time where I wanted to go to film school. But I re-gravitated toward the sciences when I was going into college, and especially like after my first couple of days of college, I was just so excited by all of my science courses and how I felt like every time I left a lecture, I'd like learn some new, like, just fundamental truth about the world and how it works that I didn't know before. And that feeling has really kept me going. Like, a well-done science course can be an incredibly eye-opening experience. So it's something I wanted to do. I actually think that those kinds of courses are why I've always wanted to be an academic. But for various reasons, I wound up not getting into a paleo grad school in my first round of applications. And despite having done some research and already having published a paper, I just kind of said, okay, maybe I'm just not good enough and I don't have what it takes. And so I started making plans to pivot. And that's why I did a master's actually here at Stony Brook too, in physiology and biophysics. I was intending to bulk up my resume and take the MCATs and go to medical school because I already had a lot of required courses done from my bio part of my undergrad. And while I was studying for one of my final exams, I saw on social media that some new paper had dropped. And I just couldn't help but read it. And it was just a very rote anatomical description of some fossil material. This was not like a big exciting Nature paper that changes everything. It was just, here's a new fossil and its anatomy. And I read the whole thing start to finish and procrastinating for studying. And I knew from then on that I had to do this and I had to give it another try. And so I sent a very hurried email to Mark Norell and other people at the AMNH asking if I could apply for grad school. Their application was due in 2 weeks, and they were like, yeah, sure, apply. And I got in, and here I am.
I don't know if it's evident, but I spilled a lot of coconut water on my face 2 seconds earlier. We'll see if anyone catches it in the edit. Who's next?
It'd be me.
Yacht Johnson.
Indeed.
Yacht Johnson, more like it.
Nope. Definitely not.
Skibbity Johnson.
Like my gentleman colleagues here. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a paleontologist.
Bum 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 bum.
I said the thing. But no, really, it was I had a brief moment when I wanted to be a herpetologist. And I basically, upon self-examination, realized that the only reason I thought of doing that was because I had a pet lizard at the time, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I studied things that were alive and moving? And then I was like, nah. But really, my choice to become a fossil preparator specifically comes entirely down to my mentor at the University of Michigan, Dr. Bill Sanders. For a while, I wanted to be a researcher, and to cut an incredibly long story short, I had a period where I was really worried I would never be able to do that, and that was an impossible goal to reach, that if I tried to strive for it, I would fail, and I would become one of those people that worked in an office and ended up being the fun fact of, oh, did you know that Scott knows quite a bit about dinosaurs? And it was like, ooh, no. But in kind of this self-reflective period, I realized that I wasn't just like, oh, I guess I'll do fossil prep. It was, oh, I love fossil prep. This is fantastic. And the more that I was learning about how being a professor and being a working researcher actually worked, because it was back when I was like in high school, when I was just like, oh, you're just a teacher, but for college students, so you can do more specific things. It's like, no, that's absolutely not what being a professor's like, especially at a research forward university. Actually, I learned that at my first SVP, and I was like, oh, I don't want to spend most of my time writing grants and stuff. I really like working with fossils. I really like the hands-on aspect, and I like the idea of doing to other students what my mentor did for me and help introduce me to the field, get my foot in the door, all of that sort of stuff. And I was like, that is what I want to do for my career. I want to be as close as I can the next generation's Bill Sanders for whatever university I end up at, because that was my big goal, is I really wanted to end up at a university museum. And now I am, and I'm actually able to have some of these interactions with some of my interns. Had a wonderful chat with one of my interns, Connor, yesterday, and it was fantastic. And Connor, I hope I helped if you end up watching this video. But yeah, I'm very happy with what I chose.
Good. Oh, is it my turn?
It is indeed your turn.
Well, I'm not going to go on too long because a lot of it has already kind of been said here, but I have also been aware for most of my conscious life that I would like to be in paleontology. Like my colleagues, my interest drifted to both herpetology and deep-sea marine biology for a time, but at the end of the day, it always came back to paleo. Through high school, I did science research in that, but then once I was looking for colleges, a truly chance encounter with Kathy Forrester and then eventually Jim Clark when I was looking for schools at GW was kind of like, oh, I'm like, oh, I can do this. Cool, tight. Where like I walked into the geology department and bumped into them and I'm like, oh, you guys are important paleontologists. Isn't that cool? And then we actually caught Kathy on the train ride back home and we talked further, my mother and father. It was a lovely experience.
Our next question comes to us from JP Lovers 16, who asks, what's the funniest shenanigans you or other paleontologists you know have gotten up to at a conference? And I think we'll preface this.
Literally can't tell you.
Basically, we cannot tell you other people's stories, and we won't be doing that. But we can tell you our
I'm not
stories.
telling you mine either.
Well, there's more stories that are appropriate to tell.
There's at least one that I think several of us alluded to that is a very good story.
Yeah, Amelia, why don't you kick it off?
I will start with one that I believe we were all at. Were we all there?
Is this horse?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay,
horse?
this is a good
yes,
one.
then yes.
Yeah, no, I can't think of so as we said before, we can't probably talk about the funniest things. Although granted, I can't think of much. No. Oh, no. Okay, okay. If someone else wants to take horse, I do have one from Brisbane.
Take horse.
You can take horse. Yeah, horse was very silly. In Brisbane, SVP Brisbane in 2019 was my first SVP. It was my first like professional conference, and me and the other Carthage students at the time had gotten money from the school through. For those of us presenting, we got a little extra, and then the other students were somewhat reimbursed through the Paleo Club that we started specifically to help with doing things like this and actually, engaging in paleo professionally. And SVP on the second to last night has this big auction to raise money for the society. And towards the end, there's a silent auction and then there's live auction. And because it was in Brisbane, the people who were running the auction had all kinds of silly Australian things. These included inflatable pool toys in the shapes of various Australian animals. So there was a big inflatable crocodile, like a pool floaty. And then there were two, not floaties, but they were inflatable, like the sticks with the horse heads that you ride on, like as a kid. I don't know what they're called, but like that. But they were
Hobby
inflatable.
horses.
Hobby horses.
Yeah, they were inflatable, and one of them was a kangaroo, and we think one of them was a kangaroo, and we think one of them was a koala. Like these animals did not look accurate at all, but one was gray and one was brown, and they kind of looked like that. So that's what we assumed they were. And at the end of the auction, SVP sometimes they will try to just auction off random items for small amounts of money. And among these random items were the inflatable animals, and my friend Eric, another Carthage student, really wanted the inflatable crocodile. He's like, that's great. We had just spent a day at the Steve Irwin Zoo. We were all crocodile fans the whole time we were there. And like, still, I love crocodiles very much. So he's like, I'm getting the inflatable crocodile. So he gets the inflatable crocodile for like $10. And then they also auction off these inflatable animal sticks. And we, as a group, bully Eric to also bid on those as a joke, except he wins them. To which we discover they squeak. So now we need to take public transit. We need to walk to the bus station and then take a bus back to the place where we were staying. This was a long evening, I'll say, which is conducive to shenanigans. And as we are walking down the street, we're squeaking these things, and Eric is going crazy because he's not happy about any of this. He didn't want these. And at one point, we passed a bouncer in front of a club, and I think it was another student, Adam, squeaked it at the bouncer, who then laughed at us. And then we had them on the bus, and it's like 10 p.m. at night. We're sitting in the back of the bus, and it's dead quiet in the bus. There's like 3 other people. And Adam leans over and grabs one of the sticks and very slowly lets it squeak. And thankfully the other passengers laughed, but they were mostly trying not to acknowledge that there were a bunch of Americans in the car. And I have photographic evidence of Adam and Eric. Eric looking, as you can see, thrilled with his collection of inflatable animals on the public bus. And then we missed our stop because we were having such a great time. We had to navigate at like 11 o'clock. Anyway, I would say that's probably the best one besides the horse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and then at the banquet, there was a picture of Eric with the crocodile because they took a picture of him after he won it. And they play like a little slideshow photos of the conference at the banquet the next day.
oh, nice.
It was very cool. A secondary silly thing, because you said Brisbane banquet dinner, which is probably cut now, but is that we, I don't remember why, but we recreated The Last Supper, and it's one of my favorite Carthage group photos I think we've ever taken.
This is a good photo. So mine also comes from the Brisbane SVP, because I took some time when I like booked the trip. I was like, I'm going out to give my first talk at SVP. It's in Australia. It's my first time going to Australia. I'm going to give myself at least a couple extra days to go do some stuff. And I went the first day. I went to like the koala sanctuary, which was amazing. The best place I've ever been.
Oh, my parents went there. They said it was amazing.
It's so great. And then the next day I took the train down to the Gold Coast, and I couldn't go swimming because I had just had knee surgery in August. So like it was 2 months after that, and I couldn't get the wound had unfortunately kind of reopened, and so I couldn't go into like the ocean. But I was able to just like walk in ankle deep. But I had like a leg brace. It was very stupid. But I took the train out, and I don't remember exactly how this worked out. For whatever reason, I bought like a one-way ticket out, and then bought like a reloadable ticket pass, like swipe card thing to come back. And so I went down to the Gold Coast and had a lovely time, wandered around the shops and the restaurants and just had a nice time. And then it came time for me to take the train back to Brisbane, and there are no signs or any kind of explanatory text as to how to use the little like tap thing that I got. And so when I got on, like the train station wasn't really a building, so it was just like an elevated platform. And there was a little swipe tag at the entrance to the platform. And so I was like, okay, well, presumably I swipe to get on the platform. And I did that. And then when the train rolled up, there's another little swipe tag on the door of the train. Having never used a system like this before, I was like, okay, clearly you swipe to get on the platform, and then you must swipe to get on the train, and that will confirm what train you're on or something like that. So I do that. I swipe to get on the train and I sit down and we're about halfway through. And then the Australian train cops are like coming through the like train. They're like, hey, can we check your tickets? They're like, yeah. And they're like, hey, they get really mad at me. They're like, why'd you swipe on and off? And I'm like, what do you mean? I swiped on. They're like, no, you swiped on the station then off the train. I'm like, I didn't know that's how it worked. It's like, I'm trying. It's like, I don't want to cause any trouble. I will happily pay. Like, if you have a system for me to pay for a ticket now, I will pay again. I'm not trying to dodge this train fare. I just didn't understand how it worked. And they were, I think, we're pretty incredulous and we're just mean people. And so they were like, they took my information. They're like, how much longer are you in the country for? I was like, 1 day. I'm like, good. And so I think I had like a temporary criminal record in Australia because of this that hopefully has expired. Australia, please let me back because I want to go back. It's a great country with mean train cops.
You're gonna get off the plane in Australia, and those two cops are just gonna be there and just be like, Dalton Maya, we've been waiting for you.
It's gonna be a penal colony again for one.
For just Dalton.
You'll go into their criminal justice system and go in front of a kangaroo court, which is I assume which is what I assume courts are in Australia.
That's just normal court for them. Yeah.
And it was okay. I think it's my turn. So, I mean, we've had many fun times at conferences, but many of them are not really my story. And many of them involve hydroxyl groups attached to water molecules. But I would say that, quite honestly, the night at GSA... Yes, I know. I'm trying to hide the trail a little bit for our younger audience. But at GSA in Portland, 4 of us were there. Scott wasn't there, but it was me, Amelia, Alex, and Dalton. I think it was Amelia. Was it your first time meeting Alex and Dalton in person?
It was.
That's a bizarre. That's a bizarre fact to know.
I was thinking about that earlier today. I think we're all on a wavelength today because I was thinking about that and I don't know why. Just earlier today, I was like, oh yeah, Portland. That was the first time with the Yale boys.
And it was a great time. And I honestly had more fun there than I think I ever have at any other conference. Like, it was just, we had a lot of fun nights, and Amelia and I had an Airbnb and we kind of made it game night central. And I think it was probably just because, like, at GSA, we don't have a lot of colleagues because it's like not really the main vertebrate paleontology conference. And so, like, our groups were just hanging out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we had kind of a lot of very concentrated fun. But I think several very fun things happened. Because of that night, I actually bought the Blockbuster Trivia board game. Which I found very fun, and I've never played my own copy. When I was moving up from North Carolina, I was like, man, this is still in the cellophane.
Oh, no.
We'll fix that at some point this summer, folks. But anyway, just that whole conference, all those nights, like just a lot of very fun nights playing card games, board games, just hanging out. We had a great time. A lot of friendship.
Good time was had by all.
Yes.
So on the topic of the SVP in Brisbane, one night James was feeling a little down. He was a little despondent, and I was like, hey, you're my roommate. Let's go do something fun. Let's go get some good food here. And he was like, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. And so we're walking down this little main drag in Brisbane, and I see something catches my eye. Little spark just, and I'm like, oh my God, is that what I think it is? And it is a New York City pizza place in Brisbane. And I'm like, oh my God, James, we need to see what these folks down under think New York City pizza is like. And this was also because James refused to go with me to the Australian burrito place. He was like, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, damn it. Because the two things I really like doing whenever I go to some other country is I really like to have absolutely the most incredibly authentic food that you can get. Like wherever the local people are going on a Friday where they just don't have dinner plans. And the most absolutely inappropriate thing to be eating there. Like when I went in Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil, went to a Duff beer themed pizza place. And it was surreal. Had the worst wine I've ever had in my life. I don't know what it was. It was like we ordered them and they said that they were white wines and they came out like Mountain Dew colored. I don't know what they were. They were not very good, but I drank a lot of it. So James and I go to this New York City pizza place. We order some pizza, and bizarrely, the pizza came with a side of French fries, just included, which is like hilarious. That is not how we do it here. But the joke was ultimately on us because I do believe that those were the most delicious French fries I've had in my entire life.
They were really good French fries. Yeah,
I have never matched that at any place I've been. They were like the platonic ideal of a French fry. Like the most pillowy inside, perfect crisp on the outside. They had a lovely like herb seasoning on them and stuff. It was like 20 out of 10. I'd fly back to Brisbane just for more of those French fries.
There were a lot of really good fries in Brisbane. Now that you mention it, like several instances where we went to restaurants and the fries were great.
It's, the Brits and their subsidiaries, I think, actually are very handy with potatoes, and especially the French fried variety.
They understand simple carbohydrates in a way that few others can.
So, Alex, the final story, the one that we've been referring to.
It's horse time. So, at a recent SVP, I think in
Toronto,
in Canada, all your paleo friends were there. And for, I think, our second to last night there?
It wasn't night, it was a lunch.
It was a lunch.
Oh, yeah, yes, it was. Myself, James Napoli, Dalton Meyer, Scott Johnson, and Amelia accompanied Amelia's mentor, Thomas Carr, to a little French restaurant in the downtown area. And I can't remember what it was called.
La Palette.
La Palette.
I'll never forget.
Seared into my memory.
Now, the restaurant specialized in something particular. And that something particular was horse meat. Now, let me tell you, ladies and gents, really good. We all went, and actually, I got clams over linguine because it's delicious, and also I was like, I'm not sure, am I gonna like horse? I don't know. I got the horse tartare as an appetizer, ultimately, which was a mistake because I tried people's cooked horse with like black garlic.
That was.
And
I
it
got
was
the
so
cooked
good.
horse.
I should have just gotten the
horse
cooked horse.
Yeah.
But the horse tartare was also delicious. I did not know horse was delicious before this. And now I'm like a man who has eaten man flesh, and that anytime I like reflect on like what is my ideal meat experience, I'm like, I gotta eat more horse.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really
good.
respected from the restaurant was that horse wasn't it wasn't like necessarily an option on the menu. It wasn't just like there was a line item that was just horse. There were several things on there that were beef dishes that you could sub in horse. And I really liked that on the steak frites with the sub in horse, they specifically said with the subbing in horse that they do not give you an option to do any other level of doneness besides rare.
Yeah.
It's just like, it is just rare.
That's how horse is meant to be eaten, apparently.
We are going to control your horse experience. We're not going to waste this horse.
You can't waste the horse.
And
I
you're
love
right,
horse.
Alex. It is like cursed knowledge where like I have now like been around Boston and seen a couple like horse and buggies and stuff and just gone like it's the meme of I'm so hungry, how hungry? And I'm like, I don't even need to be that hungry.
Well,
You
and,
walk past
One
the
of the
horse,
most
give me that.
delicious meals I've had in my entire life.
and like it was a bit. It took us a couple days to go. Like one of our other friends told us about this restaurant. I don't think she had the horse, but she's like they had horse on the menu, and so it became a joke amongst us.
I think she
the
did.
entire.
I thought.
I don't remember.
No.
But amongst us and
Mhm.
our friend groups, it became a joke. The rest of the meeting, like, are we gonna get horse today? Are we gonna get horse? And then finally on the last
That
day,
meme, horse today, queen.
horse today,
today.
queen. Literally, we were just. And then one day, finally, we did it, and it was the group of us, but it was also, there was another undergrad who was affiliated with Gilder School, who's a Gilder School student now, and a couple other
Mhm.
Yale students were with us, and
Yep.
Carr's friend, Dino Polera, who's a paleo and anatomical illustrator. And I will send to the group chat the picture of the horse lunch that we all took.
It was a very good lunch.
Those are our good conference stories, and we'll not tell you the bad ones because they're bad stories. The next question comes from King Zasshu, who asks, "What giant extinct animal would be your war mount?" And I think we've kind of tread on this a little bit before, and also during the live stream, incidentally. So we'll just go through briefly what people said. Emilio, why don't you kick us off?
Triceratops, easy.
That's a good answer. My answer would be a titanosaur in armor, like a big war elephant, but better because it's bigger.
It depends. Like, what military doctrine are we talking about here? This matters.
It does. I mean, if it was like modern
one where
war,
a war mount matters.
Yeah.
Well, right. Yes. So, okay, if it's a modern war, no dinosaur, because I don't want to subject the dinosaur to like the power of the U.S. Navy. Like, who would win, a titanosaur in armor or a artillery shell the size of a freight train? Like, this is not. It's not a good fight. The titanosaur, spoiler, would lose. So, like, I don't know, the USS Theodore Roosevelt.
It's what's the thing of the first instance of the use of HP as a stat on anything was in war games between naval ships, and it was how many 5-inch shells a ship could take before sinking.
Yes.
So
Yes.
every living animal has an HP of 1.
Yes. Yes. I think maybe if you've armored the titanosaur like the Killdozer, you might get 2.
Only a matter of time
probably
before
not.
the Killdozer came up.
Yeah, listen. I think about the Killdozer a lot. But yeah, if we're assuming some sort of infantry or cavalry driven warfare, if this is like a massed infantry formation thing, if we're fighting in phalanx style, Triceratops, or maybe Styracosaurus if I want to be a little bit more flamboyant on the battlefield. But if we're talking about like hit and run cavalry, probably a large one at the Mimosaur or a juvenile Tyrannosaur, something very fast and large enough to carry me. But mostly for speed, not for brute force.
Mm.
A cavalry unit comprised solely of juvenile tyrannosaurs with those like fast running legs would be a pretty cool thing to see. I dare say.
I'm going to say not necessarily what I think would be objectively the best answer, but the one that I gave during the stream, which I think is one of the more creative answers, which is a stegosaur. Specifically, so archers could be on its back using the plates as cover.
That slaps. That's good.
A very good choice. I will return with my answer from the last one of these as well from the stream, which is, if I'm going into battle, it's going to be like a Frutidens, something like that's about this big, that I can give avian flu, and I think would reproduce quickly. And then behind enemy lines, because that's the only way any dinosaur is going to be useful in any kind of conventional warfare, because gun beats dinosaur 100% of the time.
Now
it could be medieval. It could be
still. It would still even better. What are they going to do? Make a vaccine? No, they're all going to die.
Now, Alex, I do have a follow-up question for you with that.
Yes.
Which is, if you're going into battle, do you need their strongest potions?
But they can't handle my strongest potions.
What?
Potions are too strong for you. We'll have to show you Potion Seller if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
And audience, if you haven't
My
seen
potions
it,
are
pause
too
right now,
strong for you.
watch Potion Seller, then come back. Our next question comes to us from Mayday, who asks, if we were given the powers to decide on rewriting history such that either terror birds or Sabikasukids survive to the modern day, which would you pick? The crocodiles, for me, is obvious because they're more unique compared with what's around today. Like, terror birds are cool, but at the end of the day, I would probably be equally scared of an ostrich. No, like, not in terms of scariness factor, but just in terms of what we could learn from them. Like, terror birds would be very interesting, but they are at the end of the day birds, and there's 10,000 of those, and there's nothing alive today like these terrestrial crocodilians. So,
Before someone else answers, real quick, Dalton, because you brought it up, did you know that the Potion Seller guy wrote the movie Challengers?
I did,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah,
It's
so rad.
it's great.
So next would be Amelia.
I
Oh, yeah,
agree.
you just agreed.
Yeah, I just agree. The crocs are cooler and more unique, and we already know that people wiped out giant birds, so we wouldn't have seen them anyway.
I also agree on the Sabekasukids. I want to see a terrestrial crocodiliform. What are they? Alex, what clade do they belong to?
There's Fasukians, so they're
There's-
basically Nodosuke, sisters to Nodosuke, depending on which phylogeny.
Okay.
Or technically in, but yeah, so they're Mizoyu crocodilians, so pretty primitive.
Right.
Relative
Yeah,
to
no,
the crown.
I would love to see something like that. I would absolutely love it. It's one of the things I'm saddest we don't have on Earth today. So
Almost two. Just missed them.
yeah, well, yeah, it always trips me up. They last into the Miocene, right? Like, that's really recent.
11, 12 million years ago.
Sad. Very sad.
Rip.
I'll be the sole bird defender on this chat, and like, I do think that this really is a Sophie's choice of a question here because both of these are awesome. But a continent where, like, let's say hypothetically Gabby didn't wipe out all of them, and Gabby being the great American biotic interchange, not a single person who is horrifying.
Name's Gabby.
Named Gabby.
The vengeful Gabby.
It's a Dark Souls boss name.
The vengeful Gabby. Like, hypothetically, if the Gabby didn't wipe out all of the Forest Ray kids, I think it would have been really, really interesting to see how cultures would have developed on a continent where the dominant predator is not mammalian. Like, I just think that is a fascinating idea. Like, and like, hypothetically, they were resilient enough to survive that, so maybe they wouldn't immediately all have gone extinct as soon as people showed up. But I think it would be really, really cool. They're horrifying monster animals, and I love them.
Terror birds are, I guess, transitioning into my answer, terror birds are undeniably cool, and it would be nice to check them out, but their close relatives are extant, and, like, I know what a flightless bird looks like. Still cool. The obvious answer is the croc. If you've ever seen, like, a Komodo dragon at a zoo, like a big one, there's the reaction of, oh, well, that's a predator. That is something that I have no kinship with and would lay me low. And the idea of one of those but twice as long and also, like, chest high and a crocodile, that goes very hard. It's sad they went extinct, and I wish they hadn't.
That was a cool Komodo dragon at the zoo in North Carolina, right?
That was a good Komodo. And that was a little one. He was moving.
Yeah, he was really active. He was climbing around. He wasn't a little baby, but, like,
mid-size.
Yeah, mid-size. I would say, like, maybe a third grown.
Last time I went to the Smithsonian Zoo, their big old giant Komodo dragon there was actually walking around, and I think I registered this as the first time I've seen a Komodo dragon at a zoo move.
No, the one at the Smithsonian Zoo is a big boy.
Oh yeah, and he like we walked up and he just kind of like stood up and took a couple steps. He was like, "Oh, cool."
They're such good animals.
I love big lizards.
Big.
Our
They
next-
really do hit different.
They do. Our next question comes to us from Caiman, who asks, as part of the field, what was your favorite specific dinosaur specimen that you got to meet in person? For example, seeing Sue or that Parasaurolophus with the broken spine. For me, it's probably seeing the London Archaeopteryx when I visited the Natural History Museum in England. That was very cool. That's the second Archaeopteryx I've seen, because I've seen the Thermopolis one, but the Thermopolis one's not tremendously impressive. The London one also
The
not.
Thermopolis one looks like roadkill.
Yeah, the Thermopolis one's rough. The London one, rougher than, say, the Berlin one, but much more recognizably like an Archaeopteryx. Like, oh, that's really cool. And I'm looking forward to someday seeing the one in Chicago. I don't think that I'll be seeing it anytime soon. And if it's not the London Archaeopteryx, this is not one specimen, but the Quarry Wall at Dinosaur National Monument is tremendous. And if you
such
like
a good answer.
If you like
Yeah,
dinosaurs
that's a much better
and you live in the US, make an effort to go see that. It's insane.
It is incomparable.
It feels fake.
There's a place in Yunnan, China that is like similar in that it's a huge wall of like prosauropod dinosaurs, and it's very, very cool. But there is something about the scale of like the proper sauropods that just hits different.
I've never seen it.
All right,
Skeleton Crew road trip.
Road trip. How close is it to Utah? Could we do it in the 4 days?
You could probably do it when you're in Salt Lake.
It's in Utah, right? All right, it's in
in
yeah.
Utah.
Shut up, idiot.
It's
I know
like a couple hours outside of Salt Lake.
that. Do you like how I called you an idiot for me not knowing things?
I don't know what part of you.
the scorpion. Jesus Christ.
This is a great question. For mosasaurs specifically, there's a whole bunch that like for a long time that I like knew, quote unquote, from photographs in the literature, and it was just so cool to actually see them, you know, for real, but also like to find out for a lot of them that there was a lot more material preserved than was photographed, which is like simultaneously really frustrating. Realizing how, you know, how much is not published, but also like really cool because it means that there's more data than you thought. And I guess, I mean, there's so many. I listed a bunch. I won't rattle them all off, but the ones that I remember really striking me are obviously Bunker. Bunker is like the biggest one known from relatively complete remains. Like it's a Tylosaurus from Kansas that's almost 50 feet long. The skull alone is incomplete, and as tall as I am, or like as long as I am tall, is an insane animal. And most of it's in pieces, but most of the snout and the front part of the head is one big piece. And it's on like, what's the thing that you put people on when they're hurt?
A stretcher?
A gurney?
A stretcher. It's almost like it's not literally on a gurney or a stretcher, but it's on a board that looks like that because it's just huge. And then we had to get like additional people to help like move the stupid thing so I could like photograph it and stuff. But anyway, it's very cool animal. The other cool mosasaur being the one at the AMNH because it's nearly perfect. Like it's almost complete. It's got soft tissue. It's just gorgeous. And I have to do one more, which is VP3, which is the Sternberg Tylosaurus. It is like bone white, insane, incredible, cool. Gorgeous. Non-mosasaur Tiktaalik. That was insane. James and I were visiting the museum in Ottawa, and on our last day, they're like, "Hey, you want to see Tiktaalik?" Unprompted, I think, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because I think maybe there was another person visiting, and maybe he had asked. I don't know how it came up, but like we were working in a different part, and either Jordan or one of the other people at the CMN just was like, "Hey, you guys want to see Tiktaalik?" And we're like, "Yeah." It was so cool. It was so cool. Like, it's just a dumb fish, but it's a cool dumb fish, and it's very important, you know, scientifically and all that.
For whatever reason, I thought it was in Europe somewhere, but it makes much more sense that it's in Canada because it's from the New World. It's
from, and I don't think the CMN does not like own it. It's not theirs. It's I forget the people that actually owns it technically. It's just the CMN like stores it for them.
And that's the holotype, right?
Yeah, because it was
there
found.
are
It was
others.
found on native land, and I
Cool.
don't remember the name, but I remember like that. It's a situation. There's a lot of museums in North America that do this. Like they have spaces for fossils that are found on native land. If the people who
Harvard
found them
does
don't
this.
have the resources to take care of them, the museum will do it for them. So like they still own it. It's still their fossil. They still get to determine stewardship. Yep, that's the word, right? So like they still have full control of like what happens to it, but for the purposes of like storage, it's kept in usually a government museum, like with the whoever, like Department of National Resources or whatever the equivalent is in that area, because the South Dakota School of Mines has a couple of those as well.
Yeah, it's owned by at least one Inuit tribe or organization, because like there are Inuit people in Alaska and Canada, and so I don't know the subdivisions, and because I'm ignorant to them, I won't speak more solidly. But yeah, it's Inuit territory.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was found way the hell up north in Canada somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
Ellesmere Island. Yeah, which is like a little north and west of Greenland. So like it's very high up. Yeah. Well, it's my turn now. I do have two answers, but I'll keep them very brief. So when I started graduate school, obviously starting at the AMNH, there are a lot of really incredible, important specimens that you're around a lot. But the one that really got to me was the Velociraptor holotype specimen, just that little skull that's been kind of flattened with the nose a little bit artificially turned up. It's just such an iconic specimen. I've always loved dromaeosaurs. This is before I was working on them, but just getting to see it and hold it was amazing. And I later CT scanned that specimen, which I put a lot of work into. And Alex said something very nice in the last take of this one.
Best CT scan I've ever
invite
seen.
him to do so again.
One of the best CT scans I've ever seen. He gets the serrations on the little maxillary teeth that are so fine. It's so rare to get the serrations on a micro CT scan, and it was a pleasure to segment. And maybe you'll see it in an upcoming publication.
I hope that's not a maybe.
You will see it in an upcoming publication.
You better
see it. But the other one was when I traveled to Canada recently. I got to see the beautiful juvenile Gorgosaurus preserved in the death pose. It is now the second most complete Tyrannosaurus specimen known from North America, because the dueling dinosaurs Tyrannosaur is more complete. There is some stuff missing from this guy.
More complete than Sue?
I believe. I mean, our estimate is that every bone is there. We are not aware of any bone that is not present.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. No, I mean it's amazing. It might be missing a chevron or something, but
it's got gastralia in the sterna and stuff.
Yeah, you've seen it.
I've seen like half of it prepped in a block.
Well, yeah, that's the only thing anybody's seen so far. It's in the block being prepped. But anyway, the Gorgosaurus is missing, like it's missing one of its forelimbs entirely. But it's a really, really beautiful specimen. And I would say I think it's in the most perfect preservational state that I've ever seen. It's almost undeformed. It's like uncracked. It's not broken. It is just perfect. And this specimen TMP 1991.36.500. Just beautiful, and the kind of thing that just like kind of makes you stop in your tracks when you see it.
And go, awooga.
That's what my eyes do. I'm like a cartoon character. That's what happened. It was really embarrassing. I was there with Lindsay, and I had to like excuse myself to put my eyes back in. She had to see me go awooga about a dinosaur.
Did you pant like a dog and slap your knee a bunch?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I just never want to see you make that face again in my entire life.
Okay. Good answer, though. Are you done?
Yes, I am.
Who's next?
Scott.
Me. Dalton's answer hit me with a bit of inspiration, which was probably the coolest fossil thing I've ever seen in my entire life is the ashfall fossil beds.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Those are really cool.
It's Pompeii. Like, it's not just that, like, the fossil wall at Dinosaur National Monument is phenomenal. It's incredible. It's a one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Ashfall fossil beds is entire animals completely underformed with like body contours and everything around them. It is like they all just laid down and went to sleep, and it is a field of them. They are preserved the best that they could be without just having flesh on them. It's surreal. Like, it's the first time I've seen fossils, and my first thought wasn't, oh my god, these are cool fossils. It was, these are dead animals, because that's how well they were preserved. It tripped a different part of my brain. It's amazing. If you are somewhere within like 300 miles of that area, it is worth going there, because like, I mean, I would say if you were close by, but from my experience, nothing's close by that part of Nebraska, nor should it be. But oh my god, it is worth a trip at some point in your life. It's amazing. The facility is fantastic too. It's the best, besides Dinosaur, it's the best in situ museum I've been to.
Yeah.
Because like none of the specimens are moved from where they were found. It's just they cleared off the soil and the matrix and everything down to the level of those fossils, and it's so good. It's, oh man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Ashfall.
No, it was a pleasure. It was a stop on our department road trip, and one of the coolest things I think we saw.
I've only seen pictures. I'm desperate to see it.
James Napoli Go Outside Challenge.
Thank you.
No, it's actually indoors.
I would have to go outside for a very long time to get over there.
The James Napoli Go West Challenge.
Go west. Go west.
He's been west plenty.
I know.
Go west, young Napoli.
Go, yeah. All right, my turn. It's my turn. Well, a lot of the ones I was going to say have been said. Dinosaur National Monument is really like incomparable in how cool it is. So that one's good. Stuff I've seen that kind of blows my noggin. There's some Velociraptor stuff at the AMNH that's gorgeous. Really, all of those are gorgeous. All the Mongolian stuff, the preservation on that, it's just immaculate. It hits different because it's so white. It's like just like finding a cow skeleton, but it's a dinosaur. It feels different as opposed to like the Morrison stuff's like purple or black, and it's cool, but it's like, oh, this is a fossil. I have seen things in the IVPP collections that I can't talk about.
That people wouldn't believe. Like things that are just incredible specimens that I hope we see described soon. And some stem mammals from the collections at the University at Witwatersrand that are just kind of like whoa, some dinocephalian skeletons that just make you go like. That's probably. Yeah, those are gorgeous. Also, the Popo Buddy skeleton, currently on display at the YPM, is one of the best crocodilomorph skeletons I've ever seen. It's adorable and very charming, and you can see it on display here at the Yale Peabody Museum for an entry fee of $0 hairs.
Come see.
Come and see.
Those are some interesting fossils, and it was an interesting question. And here's another interesting question. That was an interesting segue. This next one comes to us from Dinodom, who asks, simple question, what's your opinion on the mini animated series on YouTube, Sauria and the Dinosauria? I haven't watched all of the Dinosauria, but I really like the ones that I have watched. I have not watched any of Sauria yet. I don't know how much of it's out yet, but I've watched the trailer. And I think it looks really cool. I love the design. I think like a kind of dark fantasy. It makes me think of like kind of like the late 80s, like 90s style, like kind of pulp fantasy comic, like Heavy Metal, the movie kind of thing. It's a great aesthetic, and putting dinosaurs and like humanoid dinosaurs in it is a great idea. So thumbs up from me.
I've seen like maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Dinosauria, is it?
Mm-hmm.
I really like the art style. Like, I haven't seen all of them, but I've liked the ones that I've seen. I really like the art style.
I really like the Dinosauria. I find it like very touching too. It's very moving. I think for whatever reason, Hollywood studios seem to get very like reticent about making silent or no dialogue films that have like any animal as a protagonist, but especially dinosaurs. Like Disney's Dinosaur was supposed to be that. Walking with Dinosaurs 3D was supposed to be that. Um, I think the Dinosauria is a perfect example of how moving and resonant those stories can be. So I would like to see more like it. Like everybody else here, I have not yet seen Sauria.
Not everybody.
Well, I'm sorry. Scott may have seen Sauria, but everybody who's spoken previously. But it looks cool. At some point I would like to watch it. I just haven't really had time. Have to watch Shogun first.
Shogun. So good.
Well, I had to understand why all my friends were talking about committing seppuku constantly.
I am going to hazard a guess, and even if Alex has not answered this yet, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that I'm the only Skeleton Crew member who's watched every episode of all of these, including the behind the scenes. And Alex, this is your bit to step in if I'm wrong on this statement. Cool. Yeah, I've watched all of these. Dinosauria is my favorite. Mostly just because it's one of the best dinosaur like pieces of media that's come out recently. It's like it swings so far above its weight class for something made by one dude. And honestly, I think that kind of a 2-part viewing of like the individual episodes and then his behind the scenes making of, I honestly think that I like the making of even better than the actual episodes. Like, he goes really in depth on the exact creative choices that went into the depictions of the different animals. Fun little Easter eggs about how like every single Styracosaurus that gets proper screen time is based on an individual specimen. And like talking about how like why he chose to depict the Pachyrhinosaurus as woolly, even though he very plainly states he was like, I know that they probably weren't. Aesthetically, it works for what we're doing, but it's so good. I highly recommend watching Dinosauria and the supplemental material. And for Sauria, I think it's a really, really good follow-up. I'm liking seeing a bunch of dinosaurs that weren't in Dinosauria, because Dinosauria was very like location focused, and some of the ones that have gotten some highlights in Sauria have been A, non-dinosaurs, and B, things that are known from areas where we don't know that many other dinosaurs, like Carnotaurus and stuff. And it's really cool. I really like the storytelling in it. It's great. Watch all of it. Everything that Dead Sound makes.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I was going to plug watching the non-dinosaur stuff that Dead Sound has made, if you haven't. I spent a lot of time watching his Immortal Machine stuff and like the making of that. It's very cool.
It's so good. It's so good. He's phenomenal. He's inspired me to learn more about animation and stuff just based off of the work that he's done. It's masterclass stuff.
No, I mean, I would just echo what everyone here's been saying, which is just that cartoons about dinosaurs are for babies, and you should watch actual shows like The Sopranos or, something cool. No.
Like the Clone Wars.
Like the Clone Wars. That's animated. That's 3D. That doesn't count. Idiot. Moron. No, of course.
I was talking about Gendy Tartarovsky's. I played you like a fool.
I've been played. I think the 3D series is better than Gendy's. No, I've really only seen a lot of the dinosaur one, not the one with like anthropomorphic dinosauroids, which seems cool. I don't know, cool. But I like the art direction of the other one is gorgeous, and it's just very cool. I've seen maybe 2 episodes. I've seen the northern one and the Styracosaurus one, and I thought those were both tight. Very cool stuff. I've actually not seen his non-dinosaur stuff, Dalton, and now that you mentioned it, I'm curious to check it out.
It's worthwhile. It's very cool. Our next question comes to us from Trailmixup, who asks, "What's your favorite species of either extinct or extant fish?" And I'm going to cheat and answer both, but to keep it brief, my favorite extinct fish is Megalodon. If you didn't guess by
the lecture
content
that you gave,
by the long diatribe I went on in our collector's pack DLC, which you should go watch if you haven't, to see what I think about the Jurassic World Evolution Megalodon. It's good. I love Megalodon, but also I feel like this question might be kind of more gearing towards rayfin fishes. So to put it back into rayfin and to answer my favorite extant fish, well, my favorite extant fish would be a shark, but my favorite extant rayfin fish is either the Arapaima or the Goliath tigerfish, and I don't think I could decide between the two. Probably Arapaima if you press me.
That's a good fish.
Arapaima are really cool.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Amelia. It's your turn. I didn't
James
realize
hates the sea. He doesn't have an answer.
This is a hard one for me because I think fish are extremely cool and fun, and I like them a lot. I like everything that Dalton says. I like most of the things that come out of the Amazon River. I think they're just fascinating. I love fish. If I had to narrow it down to like one extinct thing, I gotta stick to the seaway and say Cephactinus. I think they're just rad. They're so big. They're so mean looking. I love them. And extant, yeah, like I said, I think fish are fantastic. But I will default to red-tail catfish because we have them in the big Amazon tank at the Milwaukee County Zoo, and they've always been my favorite.
Just long-nosed gar, honestly. I love them. I like gar a lot. I like that they look kind of prehistoric. But alligator gar are very large and a little frightening. Long-nosed gar are smaller, and despite being kind of fearsome looking, they're also cute. I think they hit kind of all the bases that I'd like to have covered. And they're small enough that you can keep them. If I ever had space for a very large fish tank, I would probably go with long-nosed gar. Or like a fish pond if I were in the right climate. We have a tank with 4 of them at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, and I loved walking by there and just looking at the gar. One of them, I think, had an issue with its swim bladder because it would just swim at like an 80-degree angle or something, just all the time. And I always thought it was dead and it was fine. And then one day it was swimming normally again, and I guess whatever was wrong was over. It was very odd. Anyway,
probably
I like
a swim
gar.
bladder issue.
Yeah, it's similar to a skill issue, but involving more bladder.
Mm-hmm. My favorite extinct fish would probably be Uncapristides. It's gigantic, and the fact that it is a saw skate and not a saw shark is really cool. It's just kind of a type of animal that we don't really have now. I mean, we barely have saw sharks. And I would love to see one of those. They're one of my favorite cartilaginous fish, period. But Uncapristides is definitely my favorite extinct fish, and my favorite extant fish would probably be alligator gar. Because even though they look big and scary, there have been no confirmed attacks on humans. They're gentle giants. They are lovers, not fighters.
I saw that River Monsters episode. I know.
And but on James's note of things that you could possibly keep, one day I really, really, really want to own a Bashir, a Polypterus. Honestly, inspired by Mick at the AMNH because he has one, and it's the cutest, most personable fish I've ever seen.
It's gotten a lot bigger, Scott.
Oh, I bet, because I saw it when it was this big, and I know that they can get almost 3 feet long. They get huge.
Oh, you remember the tank that you helped me take out of my apartment in New York, the Huxley's old tank?
Yes, I do.
That I believe it's in that now.
Good Lord.
Yeah, because I was just like, Mick, you said you needed a bigger tank for this guy, right? Well, I've got a tank I'm not using. If you clean it out, it's yours. So I think it's in there.
They are great fish. They're so cool. Like I only learned about them when I started grad school, I was not aware of them existing. And then back when I was more involved with caring for the reptile colony we have in our lab, I had to visit this local pet shop quite a bit to pick up crickets to feed the lizards. And it's like a combo reptile fish store, like a lot of those places are. And they very often have Bashirs. And every time I saw them, I'm like, oh man, they're like not prohibitively expensive.
They're not.
I was like, if I splurged a little bit and bought a nice fish tank, I could get one of these. But then knowing that I'm going to have to move ever makes me reticent to own a fish tank.
Yeah, I'm not going to get a big fish tank until I'm in a place that I'm like, I'm going to be in this one location for the foreseeable future.
I own this building.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't know that's how you pronounce them until right now.
Did you think biker?
Bitchier.
Alex, do you have a favorite?
I hate every fish I see, from chimpan arapaima to chimpan zebrafish.
Well done.
No, I love fish. I think fish are incredibly cool. I don't hate the sea like James, and I don't fear it.
Okay, fine.
As far as extinct fish go, there are like... People have said most of the good ones. I mean, there are so many good ones. I would say dunk is a good fish. I really like the Adestes and Helicoprion, like all those weird like Permian ones. There are too many good fish in prehistory to choose one, so I give you that list. There are also too many good extant fish to choose one. But fish that I think are pretty cool include, but are not limited to, oarfish, goblin sharks, which get very big if you didn't like pushing 6 meters. Monsters, horrible alien face monsters, so cool. Pelican eels, gulper eels, really all the deep sea fish are pretty cool. There's like the zone of cool deep sea fish, and I don't mean to disparage fish, but like there's the top of the water column, which is like, oh wow, a whale, oh great. And then there's like where everything is a nightmare, and then once you get to like the seafloor, everything's kind of boring again, where it's like it's got like sort of big eyes, but it's not like cool. It's not like bioluminescent. So like that kind of water column zone where everything is horrible or strange or silly, because they are silly sometimes. Like those tuba. What are those called? Barrel eyes. Thank you. Great. So many great fish. Fish are pretty cool, guys. That's my answer.
We love the fish.
We do love the fish.
Let it be known that despite having too many bones, fish are extremely cool.
Indeed.
They do have far too many bones, though.
Yeah, bad way to learn anatomy if you're interested in anything but fish.
Yeah. Have they considered simply ossifying less of them?
Some of them did.
Well, yeah.
Some of them took it too far. And now we have questions
Mammals.
about their life appearance.
Next question.
A great question. Our next one comes to us from Violet, who asks, if you were to build a skeleton crew goodness me. If you were to build a skeleton crew style of group of people in the field that you look up to or respect, dead or alive, who would you each pick to fill your slot, and how do you think the resulting group would get along? And Violet, I'm going to presage what we discussed here, saying we all kind of struggled to think of this question. We're going to respond as best we can, but I apologize if this is not kind of the satisfactory response you were hoping to get. My answer is I really don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's hard because I think a lot of why our channel is good is that we're all friends with each other and we have a good rapport. And exactly. I would certainly think about this also from the perspective of like who would get along with each other. And I don't really know how people even one generation above me feel about each other, let alone anybody like dead or past in the field. Like sometimes people will say something and they'll be like, oh, you don't like them? And they'll be like, oh no, I don't. So yeah, there's also the very real chance that we, here's the thing. A lot of old school paleontologists were not great people, such as Henry Fairfield Osborn. And so I got very deep in my own brain about this, trying to figure out who would also like not be unknown to me a bad person. Like I know about a lot of them and their involvement in eugenics and everything, but I always try to keep in mind the fact that I don't know that about somebody doesn't mean that they weren't. Obviously, that also doesn't mean that they were, but if I were going to say this, I also wouldn't want to inadvertently choose somebody who wouldn't live up to my own standards or ideals or
Fair.
philosophy. So I don't know. To quote Larry King in one of the more baffling interviews he's ever given, I don't know.
Our audience is definitely going to get that.
I'm going to put the clip here. It's very funny. I cannot possibly mimic the cadence with which he says it.
I don't know.
But the entire interview, it's him and Regis Philbin, and the Alzheimer's is destroying both of their brains simultaneously.
Oh, no.
And so, like, every clip from the interview, it feels like one of those things in a comedy movie where they cut together unrelated conversations to make the thing happen. But you do know it's one conversation. There is not non sequiturs. There is simply no sequitur.
Who hasn't answered this question yet?
I don't have an answer for it. I think James kind of hit the nail on the head.
Okay. I would say...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Amelia.
I was just going to say, I think we're on the same page of like, hey, I don't know, because like...
It's hard. It's a hard question.
Yeah.
None of the academics that I respect would ever have a YouTube channel, and the ones I do respect, when I tell them I have a YouTube channel, either pretend that I didn't say it or directly make fun of me after having said it. So
I pretend I do not see it.
Wait, who pretended you hadn't said it?
It doesn't matter. Let's move on.
So that's Violet. That's our kind of answer for your question. And I'm sorry, it's probably not what you were hoping to get. Find another question in your heart and send it in for the future Q&As, whatever month it is when this video comes out. But our next question comes to us from Gojira, who asks, if you were given the opportunity to be a part of a prehistoric zoo, what positions would you have? And there's so many potential answers and frankly, people who answered after me, because I wrote my answer first, have better answers than I do even, and things that I would also like to do. The first thing that came to my mind is I'd like to be an exhibit designer. I think it would be a really, really cool challenge. Like, I don't have an engineering background at all, so there'd be some limitations, some struggles.
It's the whole architect versus engineer debate thing.
A lot of dinosaurs getting out in this zoo.
Yeah,
no, it's Dalton's Pit World.
This is Pit World, and I'm going to make it the best Pit World you've ever been to, because anyway, we'll be talking more about
the only Pit World.
Yeah, we'll be talking more about exhibit design in the future at some point, but I think it would be a really interesting challenge to try to come up with spaces that were suitable to meet the needs of extinct animals of sizes with which we just don't really have things in zoos. Animals even that are like size comparable to modern things, but that have different climate requirements, different kinds of environments, and try to figure that out in a way that would be enriching, safe, and beneficial to the animal, while also, being interesting for people coming to visit the zoo. I mean, I think doing exhibit design for a modern zoo would be a fun challenge, but I think it'd be even cooler for dingosaurs. Amelia, you're up.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Exhibit design would be really cool. But I think I would also be interested in like designing and implementing like outreach programs with school groups and things like that, or even like bringing programming to schools in the area and that kind of thing. Because that's outreach science communication is something that I think that I really like doing, something that I feel is really important. And that I think would be really fun to design for a paleo zoo specifically.
Oh no, go James.
Well, so taking a break from everybody else here who wants to do the fun things, I think I would really like being a part of the veterinary team for an extinct animal zoo. I would love all of the potential for like kind of basic anatomical research in the animals, but also like, research about their illnesses, their development, all sorts of things you need to understand if you're taking care of them on a veterinary level. I think it would just be super cool to be able to watch these animals grow up and document the things that can go wrong and learn how to take care of them. So that's what I'd want to do.
I'm basically saying that based off of Amelia's answer, I want Amelia to be my boss, in that I want to be one of the actual hands-on, like working directly with an animal ambassador sort of folks. Amelia wants to design and write lesson plans. I want to play with a cool dinosaur and show it off to kids. That's what I want to do. Are you kidding me? I want to do what they do at the Crocoseum, but with things that are way bigger and way more likely to kill me.
You're sprinting away from the T-Rex holding a goat in your hands.
Yeah, which boggles my mind because Mossman, the crocodile, is, I believe, the largest living thing I've ever seen in my life.
That croc gets bigger in my head every time I think about that experience.
Oh, yeah. He's a Deinosuchus to me, but yeah.
Who's big, though? Like, this is not a huge exaggeration. That was a big boy.
I think he's like 17 feet long or something like that.
Yes, that's large.
It's a big guy.
That's a big guy.
that video that I have of him coming up out of the water, it's like he comes up out to get like the treat that they have, and then it just keeps going.
He keeps coming out.
Keeps coming out.
Oh Lord, he coming.
That was exactly what I said verbatim when that crocodile came out of the water. But no, like, I want to be one of those trainers that's working directly with the animals. That sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Is it my
Alex,
turn?
do you have an answer? Yeah.
Okay. I would like the job of animal friend haver, where I get to be all the animals' friends.
It's like
or
working
I
with
would
the
like
paleo equivalent of the Red River hogs.
Yeah.
Or I would like the job of kind of like absent-minded zookeeper who accidentally leaves one of the gates open for teenagers to sneak into, and then I like film them being eaten and then sell those videos on the internet.
It's
never change,
that
Alex.
job.
I prefer the friend haver. I would prefer the friend haver.
I want to be friends with dinosaurs and kill children.
Hey,
for profit.
Teenagers.
they're sneaking in. I'm not telling them to do it.
It sounds to me like you just want to work at SeaWorld.
Yeah, kind of. But on the side of the whales.
Alex, it's funny that the first thing you mentioned, because I was going to like post script this question by saying, as people were talking, I think I was like, the other job I would want would just be to make sure I could be friends with all of the animals. And then you literally said my job would be animal friend. Which is, I mean, yeah, if I worked at a dinosaur zoo and I didn't get a chance to be friends with the dinosaurs,
What's the point?
What am I doing? But our next question comes to us from ChaoticKaiju, who asks what our favorite no longer valid species or genus name is. Something like Seismosaurus. My answer in brief is Stygivenator, because I think it's a cool name.
I've got two, I think. I feel like there's a better one that I'm forgetting, so alas. The ones that I'm thinking of are one that's most likely invalid is Mosasaurus maximus, which is the North American, the Northeast Coast one. It's probably synonymous with Mosasaurus hoffmanni, which is the European one, which, one is cool because it means it was crossing the Atlantic. But two is kind of sad because I think Mosasaurus maximus as a name is pretty rad.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
Is it that cool? Wasn't the Atlantic 12 feet across at that point?
I don't know.
It was the same mosasaur. It's been found on both sides of the Atlantic.
Look, whatever. The fossils have survived in both places. Whether it doesn't matter. Please be nice to me. Jesus Christ. I'm trying so hard to get words out right now.
Uh-oh, someone's been up.
No, I have water.
What?
I've been up since 6:30 in the morning, driving almost constantly in New York.
The viewers can choose what they believe.
Anyway, my second answer is also not technically invalid, but my suspicion is that it will be one day because it's kind of just a smear. It's a little better than a smear, but there's a mosasaur called Kaikaifalu from the Southern Hemisphere, and the name is really cool, and it's named for a deity or something, I think. And unfortunately, it's I don't know what that thing is. My suspicion is it is something that already exists, or it's just not diagnosable, which is unfortunate because I think the name is really good.
That's a great name, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Seismosaurus from the answer, or from the question itself, is a really tragic loss. Like, just a cool name for a giant sauropod. But I just find the name Triceratops flabellidus really funny. I don't really know what it means, but I just like it, and I kind of wish it could come back. So that, Triceratops flabellidus.
I'll give two really quick ones because they're two species names. And they are Torosaurus gladius and Stegosaurus armatus. Those two are such losses. I'm so sad that we don't use them anymore because they are names that are almost as powerful as Tyrannosaurus Rex. Like, they're up there. I'm so sad. But yeah, also I'll just like Ultrasaurus was up there too because that one's invalid, right?
I believe so.
Whatever spelling of it is. Saurosaurus.
I think it's invalid, yeah.
The greatest loss.
I thought that was the shadowy figure who controlled all the world's governments.
The greatest loss?
It's a George Soros joke. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's
wow.
George Soros.
No, the greatest loss in terms of
good
good names is the original. You could even call it the original sin of our field, which is that it was Scrotum humanum.
Correct. Based.
We have it. If I were given a time machine, I would go back and ensure that was the valid name of Megalosaurus.
What do you mean by that?
We would be living in a post-scarcity Star Trek communist utopia right now. Don't ask me how, but that's how it would be.
It's that one meme, humanity if Megalosaurus was named Scrotum Humanum. It's just
the spaceships, yeah. But it's not, and now we're condemned to live in this hell.
In this scrotumless land.
In the scrotumless squalor.
Squalor humanum, if you will.
Scrotum squalum.
Scabrous scrotum. And I was going to say Mad Max character names, so I'm going to move
Scrotus?
on to the next question. Rictus erectus.
Oh my god, that movie's so good.
I think Corpus Colossus is one of the best character names I've ever heard in anything.
Please go watch Furiosa.
The next Titanosaur named literally just needs to be named genus name Lord, species name Humongous.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah.
If the largest sauropod ever found is just named, and this is Lord Humongous, that would go so hard.
Oh fuck, that's so stupid. I might have to steal it. I'm flying to Patagonia. I gotta find a new Titanosaur.
You gotta name Lord Humongous.
Is there some way we, Tyrannosaurs keep getting these like stupid names, like an 11-year-old was cool. Could we do one that is, I am the scales of justice, the conductor of the choir of death?
Sing, brother Heckler! Sing, brother Cock!
Oh my god, that movie's so good. Oh,
I haven't gotten to go see it yet. I'm really
that's from Fury Road.
That's from Fury Road. Furiosa's rad too. It's just
Furiosa's
rad in a different way.
God, what tremendous films! Our next question comes from Kyokyodoka, who asks really simple question, which is a very funny of you. There is a trend, or rather a thought, that all animals, no matter their cruelty, are important to the ecosystem or deserve love and respect. However, with such things as parasites and other less than noble animals, do you think otherwise? For example, do you think that animals such as mosquitoes should be destroyed? This is a complex question.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. I'll start, just because that's the order that we've written in. I'm of several minds about this question. Oh my goodness, I'm being yelled at by an animal right now. I'm of several minds about it, in that I do, in my core, think that every living thing deserves respect. Like, there is a thought of mine, like, the idea of destroying a species, I don't like. Like, there is a part of me that takes... The two minds about it are this, which is, like, we are animals, and we are inextricably linked to nature, and we cannot remove ourselves from it because we come from it. Simultaneously, I also feel kind of like a Halo level forerunner, like mantle of responsibility for other things on Earth, because like we both understand like the ecosystem besides humans, and also exert influence outsized compared to any other species that's ever lived, and we have to contend with how we exert that influence. So I do think that every living thing deserves respect. At the same time, I also think it's important to try to minimize human exposure to pathogens and reduce that kind of level of suffering in the world, for humans and other animals when possible. Not just in terms of like a utility aspect of like livestock, but like, I don't know, like it sucks to see things suffer from a pathogen. But there's a part of me that thinks we should try to leave nature unspoiled to some extent, which is impossible. But another part that recognizes that, like, yeah, like I said, like we're not separate from nature and we influence it. And at a kind of a detached level, it's also interesting to kind of think about, we are exerting forces on the planet that have never been seen before, and that like in the nearly 4 billion year history of life, there's no one species that we know about that has ever been able to even have like the thought of, oh, let's eradicate other species, like let's intentionally make something extinct, and let's, you know, there are whole classes of organisms, right? There are whole like groups of bacteria, whatever you want to consider viruses as a life form, parasites, you know, pest insects. There are whole groups of animals whose entire evolutionary history has been directing them down a particular lifestyle path of like, I am a parasite, this is my life cycle, this is whatever. And now they're forcing a selective pressure from something that is completely outside of their realm of understanding, that just wants to eliminate them because of what they are. Like that's it feels bad, but it's also very interesting. It's like, what are they going to do? Like, how is life going to respond to this? I don't know. It's tricky. Like, to like make it succinct, I don't think animals such as mosquitoes should be destroyed. But I do think that we should try to minimize harmful and especially pathogenic effects, especially on humans. And I think there are probably ways to do both to some extent. But then, like, you know, like, do we think we should eradicate disease causing like microorganisms? Yeah, probably. At least some of them. So, you know, it's a very gray zone. There's no kind of black and white answer to this.
Yeah, I think Dalton summed it up really well, because like it is really hard for me to think about like wiping out a species. Like that's such a final thing, you know. But on the other hand, like so many people around the world don't have access to like medical care that could help them, you know, in places where they're exposed to pathogenic organisms. And you know, unfortunately, sometimes it's there's nothing. What else can you do? You know, and if it's a step towards helping people not suffer, ultimately, I think that has to take priority. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I think on some levels, like pathogen elimination is probably just kind of inevitable. Like, it seems to be a direction society is, or I shouldn't say society, I guess, but like human civilization seems to be heading in that direction, right? We clearly don't think that, well, yeah, I mean, or our own eradication, but I don't know. I think that a lot of things like this are just going to happen. I mean, I think that there could have been a version of this conversation if people had been thinking about it this way then, of like, is it something we can do to alter large portions of the landscape by like adding irrigation in to make sure there's water flow to irrigate our crops? And like, it was inevitably going to happen. We as a species create a world we want to live in a way that other species don't. I think that while it is sad that we can't see or study or understand like an unspoiled wilderness, it is also something interesting about human biology that this seems to be like, this is an aspect of our species. This is one of our traits. If you give us if you give us an area to live in, we will modify it to our needs. Like beavers with dams. I think that there are cases where eradication of species that like are vectors for illness will probably happen. I have more empathy for anything macro scale than micro scale, so I'd rather we target the pathogen and not the vector. I do also think that we will probably wind up engaging in some sort of genetic engineering. Like if we could genetically engineer mosquito populations to not be able to carry pathogens.
I think some of that is in the works.
It's just going to be a thing we do. There was an interesting article about this recently because like this is something that I think actually Australia is dealing with cane toads. There's a proposal to just like genetically modify them and like introduce into the population non-venomous cane toads.
Mm-hmm.
Just so that things won't die when they eat them because the cane toads are there. And I don't know, it's certainly not nature, quote unquote, but it is a better solution for everything overall, in my opinion. It's a complicated issue. I think that there's a lot of complexity to it. The one thing that I will say I take a stand on, though, is like I do think that there's a kind of a worrying psychology about invasive species where they are like worthy of eradication. Most arguments about invasive species I hear, if you swap the nouns, could be arguments people make against like immigration or migration or refugees. And I think that means it's not really a scientific argument about them. And so like pathogens are one thing, but I think the way people want to almost monomaniacally just exterminate anything that is not perceived as being native to an area feels to me a little bit inhumane.
Scott.
Indeed. I'll kind of just basically say I agree with everything that my colleagues had said prior. And my little twist on this is that I think that not only do I also just really am I really just absolutely uncomfy with the idea of eradicating a species because it is a nuisance. I mean, I am a person that I don't kill bugs in my house unless they are ones that can directly and acutely do me harm. Like I killed a wasp that was in my window this morning, but like hell, I relocate everything outside. Or ladybugs, I put them to work. I put them on my I put them on my herbs in my window garden because I'm like, hey, if you're gonna be here, you're at least gonna pay rent. Keep the aphids off of them. Yeah, I'm not one that likes to kill animals in my house. I avoid it whenever I can. I'm always reminded of the closing lines of a poem that stuck with me of, if I am killed for simply living, let death be kinder than man. And I do also agree that I think moving in the direction of like getting rid of pathogens and stuff with the genetic engineering is the least invasive way to improve the quality of life of like life in general. I will also say that like with eradicating species, I think that would have in almost every instance knock-on effects on the ecosystem that are almost impossible to predict and would be like so many things eat mosquitoes. So many things. If someone snapped their fingies.
I'm always snapping my fingers.
I'm owning this. If someone snapped their fingers and just all mosquitoes on Earth, or like all things that are parasitic on humans on Earth, just gone. I wonder how long the ecosystem would be around, just the global ecosystem, because that is such a base level animal that like I think things would go very, very badly. So
Fair.
Ways to minimize the negative effect on other living creatures, I think, is the best way forward.
Thank you, Scott. That was I think that's a insightful answer. No, it's a good question. And like everyone has said, it's hard to answer. I mean, fundamentally, like, all life on Earth is kind of miraculous, and like the human impact on life as it exists is grim, and it's the smell, if there is such a thing, Mr. Anderson. No, I mean, it's troubling because it's kind of a competing idea of like it's a competing stage of like delusional fantasy, where there are those who think they can like preserve a system that is not inherently not static, like James was speaking to earlier. Like, species move, invasive species happen, like that's natural. Like in that is something that is not necessarily, that it's something that happened in the past of Earth. Now, if you want to argue, is like, oh, is it human mediated? Whatever, fine. But yeah, so it's a war between like that delusion and then like the delusion that that human interference in natural systems can do anything but harm. Like, if we eliminate a pathogen, I'm like, all right, cool, but like population density is going to like, if organisms can reproduce more rapidly without getting sick and dying in mass, like that density is just going to probably pretty rapidly lead to the evolution of new pathogens, because microorganisms are like incredibly ubiquitous. It's challenging. I would err towards a path of least harm, obviously, and like minimal interference in natural systems. But yeah, the idea that you can basically keep an environment as a static thing that never changes is it's a delusion, and the idea that you can like that human beings will not just go extinct in 10,000 years and will ever reach the stars is also delusion. Like, we're dying here. Like, I hate to break it to you, but we're not going anywhere, and we deserve it. That's my answer.
Well,
minimal
on
harm.
that note,
and the minimal harm answer is that we don't go anywhere. The indomitable human spirit is not indomitable. I'm sorry. Time is indomitable.
I also want to call attention to something I should have called attention to earlier when we were talking about how much I like fish. I bought this at Target. I don't need more blankets. I have so many blankets, but I now own this blanket covered in fish because I think fish are great. It's very cute. Go to your local Target if you want a blanket. If you want a blanket covered in freshwater North American like trouts and things.
I see it looks like a salmon.
Target pay us.
Yes.
Target pay us for that.
Target pay us. There's a sockeye salmon. There's a rainbow trout that's actually pretty good. I don't know what this is, but he's cute and he's blue.
I'll level with you, Amelia. It's so pixelated that I can only see the colors.
So, Alex, also, Target, if you didn't know, is a department store. It's kind of like...
right. I've been... there's a Target in my town. I've been to a Target, sir. Now, Dalton can tell you about my Walmart
first
experience.
time we went to Walmart. Unfortunately, it was the New Haven Walmart, which is one of the worst I've ever been to.
They're all bad.
I've been to others. This one's like rock bottom. The one in Old Saybrook, shockingly, is nice, but I mean, it's a rich town. So.
No, the threat of Targets is that they sell Lego.
Oh, right.
And Magic.
Yeah, but I always buy mine as singles online.
Yeah.
And our Target, the area where they sell the Magic cards, is always just cluttered with all of the like random debris and detritus that the employees have to pick up. It's like where they put their zoning carts, if you're familiar with the Target lingo. If you ever worked there.
Dalton, you were a Target employee.
I was, yeah.
You knew the things.
It's gone downhill, folks.
Well, it's because you're not working there anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, you were
the tight ship.
The mortar that held that entire
goof
place
off
together.
Most of the day. So our next question comes to us from Camphibia. Camphibia asks, are there any trends, ideas, or behaviors in the paleo community, online or in general discussion, that you have particularly strong feelings towards, whether it be positive or negative feelings, and why? And this is a can of worms that we
just can't answer that. I can't answer.
Must care not to open. We're going to take care here. We talk about this in other videos too. So if they're like, watch our Walking with Dinosaurs video to kind of see what our thoughts are on how the community sometimes responds to new media, and how we think it could be done constructively. I feel, especially more recently, and this is especially in like social media circles in the paleo community by enthusiasts, oftentimes games of telephone are played. And that results in some ideas being taken as being correct or as accurate, quote unquote, at face value. But they aren't backed up by any kind of strong source. They aren't backed up by a paper, or if they are, that paper might not actually say that objectively. Like there isn't a piece of primary literature with observational data that's backing up what's being said. That someone might, in good faith, put up a post like, "Hey, this is how I think this should like be reconstructed. Like do this, this, and this," and then that eventually becomes to, "Oh, hey, didn't you hear that? This is what we know this looked like now." And it's like, no, we actually don't know that. No one has said that in any kind of like peer-reviewed literature. And so the original inception of whatever that idea is becomes lost or muddled. You can't trace it back to where it comes from. And it's really important. We talked about this in a couple videos. I don't even remember which ones now at this point. Like you need to read papers. But
that was Tyrannosaurus was our first spiel about it.
Yeah. But even more than just like reading the papers, it's very, very important to be able to trace back where an idea comes from. And then you can actually assess whether you agree with that idea or not, right? You trace back what observation was made that led to a given conclusion. And whether that is from the fossil record or not, well, it should be from the fossil record if it's paleontology, but whether that's from like the peer-reviewed literature, or even if it is just someone online who says like, "Hey, I noticed this in a bone I saw. I think this and that." Like, it's valid to do that and to share those kinds of ideas. But if that then becomes taken as just like kind of word of God, matter of fact, like we understand this, like you need to be able to go back to say like, who said this? Do I agree? Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. And don't just be like, "Oh yeah, we know this now." Like this happens a lot and it kind of irritates me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I am not known for having less than strong feelings about many things. I think to give an example of the telephone things, like I think we're in agreement generally of things that bother us, and to kind of build upon the game of telephone thing that Dalton described. I'm remembering an instance like a couple months ago where a friend of the channel, Luigi, posted an Allosaurus meme, which led a bunch of people to believe that there was a new Allosaurus paper, which is not on Luigi at all. He just posted a meme, but the movieification, however you want to like describe it, of how new research in this field is treated, just led to that. Like people, because like Luigi has a lot of followers, he posts a lot of memes that are usually tied to new papers, but not always. Like he just likes dinosaurs and likes making memes. People genuinely believe that there's new research, and it's like, how do you like? It's bizarre. And then to kind of come back to something that I feel like I talked about in one of these videos recently, but I don't remember. But just the general attitude towards research in the field by fans, for lack of a better word, is frustrating a lot of the time. Like the way that new papers are treated as if they were like movies or new episodes of a show or something, where people talk about the scientists as if they're actors and actresses, or talk about the specimens that way, or come up with like literally like fan theory type things that are just so off the wall that they become part of this game of telephone where like eventually they make their way onto a Wikipedia page. And just the way embargoes are treated as like leaks and stuff, it's just really frustrating, and something I never thought I would have to deal with, in doing research. Like I never, in my time in the other lab that I was a part of before doing paleo in the gecko lab, like nothing like this ever happened. And so, when I became more involved with paleo and social media and things, it was just bizarre, and it took adjustment to it, but it's still every now and then it still gets to me quite strongly. Because it feeds into like others are going to talk about how there's a lot of talking down on other workers, on new media and things like that, and just this game of trying to figure out who's the most accurate, who's the most whatever, and it just drives me nuts because it doesn't get the science anywhere. In my opinion, it doesn't do the field any favors in terms of our appearance to the general public. It's, I'm sure, a contributing factor to why a lot, like, I'd say half the time, if not more, when I tell people that I don't know that I'm a paleontologist, their response is, "Oh, so you must hate Jurassic Park." Because all the fans do online is complain about Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. To be clear, they're usually complaining about Jurassic World. But it's just so... It doesn't help. Like, it doesn't help us to get funding. It doesn't help new media to be made if everybody just complains about everything constantly because a computer model of a dinosaur has its wrists in the wrong orientation. Like, I get it. It communicates that they're related to birds, but in the grand scheme of things, if someone is interested in the science, they will learn about it one way or the other. They will already know, or they're not going to notice, and it's not going to make that connection. It's just... Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot. I agree with everything that Amelia and Dalton have said. I'm particularly bothered by, like, I don't know. I don't like it when people joke about how long research is taking to come out. Because, like, I don't know. I've been on one end of that a couple of times. Like, there are some papers I've been working on for a very long time. The reason I've been working on them for a long time is that I'm trying to make them good. And, like, good research takes a lot of time sometimes. Just, like, a description of a specimen, especially. I hear this line a lot, like, "Oh, is that finally going to get described?" I'm like, I don't know. For me, describing that specimen might be multiple years of my life where I put a lot of time and effort into it. It's not just like writing about what it looks like. It's not describing it in the colloquial sense. It's like a scientific analysis of a specimen. It takes a lot of time and effort. Some descriptions take longer than others, but generally, I think if we're doing them to good standards, it's not uncommon for a specimen to be like the linchpin of someone's PhD.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that should give you I mean, all of us have specimens like that. Like, for me, it was the hypodyme of Cetopodia osmolsky, right? That descriptive paper is not out yet. It's going to be a killer when it is, but, like, I've been working really hard on it for years. The general thing that I don't like is and Amelia alluded to this, like, what I perceive as self-defeating actions on the part of our community. Like, there's a lot of tall poppy syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Where, something comes out, and I think for a lot of reasons, but I think sometimes out of jealousy, like, people snipe things down, right? Or don't do a lot of support for other people in their community. That, paleo has a lot of bitter rivalries. Some of them are scientific, some of them are personal, but, like, I think we should all be generally, like, we should work to make this a supportive field. I see a lot of, like, particular hate lobby leveled at people who are running, like, big successful labs. I don't know why. I don't like, and we talked about this in the Walking with Dinosaurs video that we released recently, so I won't go on too long about it here, but, like, complaining about new paleo media, like, it doesn't make more paleo media likely to emerge, right? Like, bad publicity is not seen as a thing that these companies want when they're investing tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in the production of a new show. And, like, other things, like when privately owned specimens go up for sale, like, our community's usual refrain is like, these are irreplaceable things that need to be in a museum. These are lines that inflate their perceived value and kind of just make the problem worse. Like, there are ways as a community we could try to deal with the problem of losing these specimens that don't inadvertently wind up compounding the issue we're trying to rectify. I don't know. I think sometimes we need to be circumspect about the way we act as part of a scholarly community and, like, a group of people who are public facing and are in a field that is known for not having enough funding for everybody who wants to work in it to work in it. Some of that involves, like, how as a community do we manage essentially our PR and do the best thing for all of us.
I have another thought very quickly because that like crystallized like so much of paleo like science communication lately is focused on like changing the public's perspective of what a scientist can be and what a paleontologist can be, and like the self-defeating thing to me like is that part of that image is the well actuallying, and by continuing this well actuallying, like the public is going to continue to see paleontologists as Ross from Friends, if that is literally how people behave. Like,
yeah, right. Like, no amount of changing the perspective of who can be a paleontologist will change their perspective on what a paleontologist is like when you meet them.
We're changing the perspective on what kind of person can well actually you.
Right, and it turns out everybody can.
Progress.
Yeah.
Do we have more to
So,
say?
I don't have an answer written, but I'll keep it short and sweet, and I will lean on an aspect of this question that hasn't really been super touched on, but has been kind of an undercurrent through a lot of these answers, which also I very much agree with my friends here. We share a lot of the same pet peeves, let's say, when it comes to interacting with the field. But I will say, on the positive end, the big linchpin is that I love that people care.
It is good.
That, like, because I've had so many late night conversations over video games with these guys about complaints about this or that or whatever it is. I would much rather have any of those complaints than be like, no one cares about what we're doing or why we're doing it. And whenever I talk about anything I'm doing, I'm met with, what? Who? Why?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I've never heard "in English, doctor" or something like that.
Yeah. No, it's something that, like, I wish that some of the passion was turned in a different direction, but I would rather have that than it not be there.
That's a good point. It's really good.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Is it my
Alex,
turn?
anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think what my colleagues and friends have said is valid. I would say I'm going to start with something that I actually like and think. So I'm not really going to talk about any kind of academic attitudes. This is, again, mostly in kind of the popular dinosaur sphere. It's nice to see, like, with so many people interested in prehistory, what people bring to it. Like, obviously, like, they're creatives, and that's always exciting and interesting to see, art and media. But also, like, I always find it very, I don't know, personally reassuring, or at least kind of, reassuring is the right word. To see the kind of like public outreach people who aren't us do. I candidly, I don't think most online SciComm is good or productive. Like, I don't know. Every time I log on, I just see more people who think like dinosaurs are fake, or like Owen made them up in the 40s. And what I truly believe is that the effective science communication is done in person, in a museum, outreach with physical specimens, and it's really quite something to see people who are volunteering their time and who are not necessarily academics doing that, and it's super cool. And what I like about our channel is that I feel, at least by kind of being, obviously we're kind of caricatures of ourselves on the channel. We're playing characters. This is not like 100% who we are, but we're close. Is that we're approaching a more personable, kind of like direct to viewer experience, which, while it can't replace like seeing stuff in a museum, hopefully is maybe reaching out to people who weren't interested in this in the first place, or doing something similar. And that's the kind of stuff that's really quite nice to see. What I now, because I said a good thing, whenever 99%, no, that's not true. 90% of my my experience while looking at Paleoso's social media or what people are doing is profound embarrassment. That I occupy a similar space. Just it's what everyone else has said. It's treating this kind of like a fandom, and that's not. I don't think that's anyone's fault necessarily. I think that's kind of like part of our societal rot, which is we don't really know how to interact with stuff. Like, it's hard. Like, we all like to, like, our hobbies are important to us and they're fun. And for a lot of people, I understand it's like a hobby. There's like, I'm gonna, it's like, what's up with Spinosaurus today? What's up with X, Y, and Z? But like, I feel like in some cases it kind of becomes like childish, or what's the word I'm looking for? Reductive. It just feels like it's another product instead of like a cool thing about the natural world we're learning about, if that makes sense. Again, this is not like, I'm not trying to like roast anyone, because I'm certain I do this for stuff I'm interested in that I'm not like professionally involved in, but like, it's something I'm super conscious of and makes me uncomfy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got to say. So there's good stuff and bad stuff. Right.
There is. However, while Alex may be playing a character for the camera, the rest of us are exactly like this in person.
No, they're not. They're lying to you.
No, but I think that's an important thing to establish, just even for like our viewers, is like, when we're on camera, we're going to be a little different. Like, it's the nature of it. Like, I see the camera, I see it right there, and it affects your behavior a little bit. So like, I think we try to keep things as genuine as possible, but like,
yeah,
remember, especially if you meet us, and I think this may apply even more to like people who are our viewers who are aspiring paleontologists, like, just when you meet us, don't be disappointed if we don't interact with each other exactly the way we do on camera. Like, what?
You got to get to know us first.
Yeah. But I mean, also, like, we're trying to be good on camera. Like, sometimes like when Alex was visiting me in North Carolina, sometimes we just sat and worked.
Like, yeah, we did mostly that.
We did mostly that, right? We had fun
really
too.
Fun. I find it really funny that Alex is exponentially meaner to me on camera than he ever has been.
This is true.
It's because it's funny. It generates content, Scott.
Yeah, no. It does. It does. And if I was actually upset about it, I would have had a talk with you about it. And we all know this because we're adults. But like, it is kind of funny. Every once in a while, I've almost like, I remember I said this to James during a road trip at one point. There was just like, Alex is a person that, like, when we do stuff online or just not in the same physical space for a while, I start to have a little bit of I almost start to buy into the character, and then Alex and I hang out, and I'm like, oh no, he's fucking the best. Love Alex.
Thank you, Scott. Love you too.
Alex, you've been so mean that I've had friends and family reach out to me after videos came out.
Oh my god, that's so good. Good stuff.
I've legitimately gotten like 4 or 5 texts of like, "Hey, I watched the latest video. Are you all right?" I'm like, "What do you mean?"
That's so funny.
It's people just don't understand comedy.
They
don't get it, man. Was that our last question? That would be a great last question.
That was not our last question.
Nope.
We have one more question, and this question comes to us from the Venerable Wheat, who asks, I am fortunate enough to live a train ride away from the Smithsonian National Mall. My favorite place in all of DC is the NMNH's Fossil Hall Deep Time exhibit. It's been 4 years since it reopened. Have you guys visited the renovated Fossil Hall yet? What are your impressions of it?
Well,
and I have had the chance to visit it. I've visited it just once. I never got to see the old one. The first time I went to the Smithsonian, it was when they were in the middle of the renovation. So they kind of just had like a weird little like end of the Cretaceous temporary exhibit thing set up. And that's all I got to see. But the last time I was in DC, I was able to go and visit it. And I think it's a great hall. I really like it. It's got some amazing mounts. Like, their big centerpiece mounts are incredible. And it has a lot of great information in it. And it tells a very good story as an exhibit. And I'm vamping because there's a sneeze coming, and it just is like it's lingering. It's at the tip of my nose. I guess like my one like kind of biggest complaint about the new hall would just be that there's a lot of stuff behind glass, and it's not like anti-glare glass as near as I can tell. So a lot of the stuff is pretty tricky to photograph, and some of the stuff that's behind glass has like lights that kind of make cameras have a strobe effect almost when they look at it. It's rather bizarre, and I'm not sure what's going on there. But it makes photography a little tricky. I mean, the point isn't, the point of a museum is not just to get photos of everything. So when you're enjoying it in person with your eyes, it's fine. But a lot of people, myself included, do like to take pictures. And so it's a bit tricky for some of it. I think my biggest issue overall is just that the last time I went to DC, we didn't have much time in the Natural History Museum because we had timed entry tickets for Air and Space because they're doing that during their renovation. And Air and Space was the priority of everyone else who was in the group I was with. And like, I think planes and rockets are cool, but like the next time I go to DC, I will be spending a full day in this museum. And even if everyone else wants to go somewhere else, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be staying there because this is the one thing I care the most about.
Has anyone not been to the new?
We've all been.
Okay, good.
Amelia, you're up.
Let me remind myself of what I said. Right, yeah. So I was in DC long before they renovated it, and I don't really remember it. I remember liking it, but I also had a very limited amount of time because it was like a not field trip, but like a school trip kind of thing. And like we had like 2 hours at each museum, so it was a lot, and not a lot of time. I was just at the renovated hall 2 or 3 years ago. In hindsight, I like it better, and I saw a presentation by, I believe, Matt Carano, right? He's the yeah, he was at Paleo Fest this year, and he gave a presentation on how they renovated the hall, and I appreciate it a lot more after seeing that talk.
Yes.
When I went, I remember initially being really confused by the layout. Like it feels like there isn't a direction. Like that's kind of the point. Like now knowing that, like that was kind of part of the point is that he didn't want to. He was not the only designer involved in this exhibit. But like the museum didn't want to like force people to go in one direction because the Smithsonian is so busy all of the time. If it was like a traditional like kind of one way exhibit path, like it would get so crowded, people want to stop and look at things. There's no way to go around them. It would be crazy. And so through that lens, I think it's great. And I think for the purpose that they wanted to achieve, I think they did that really well. For me, like I said, I found it a little confusing to navigate. I felt like I was always missing something, like because it wasn't kind of a clear layout, it's very like open.
Mm-hmm.
And the glass is frustrating, but glass is, what are you gonna do? It's glass, that's, it needs to be there. But yeah, I mean, I liked it. I like that there's a cool mosasaur on the wall that's huge and probably a chimera, but that's a later problem for me to deal with.
So I agree with Amelia. Like, so I know a little bit about the design history as well. I didn't see the talk. And like, I just know it's an old building. The space is constrained. Renovating the building to make a much larger paleo exhibit is not really an option.
No.
And so given those constraints, like they put an impressive amount of content into there. And I don't really know if there would be like a more efficient use of the space unless they just started cutting different specimens out. Like if it were only dinosaurs, they could have a much they could have a much different exhibit. Knowing the constraints, especially the only criticism that I would have are the kind of half glass walls and lots of explanatory text, because I think that that's obviously also valuable because I know one of Matt Carano's goals was like people should actually learn something here, and so.
What?
It's not like I think the other example on the other end of the spectrum would be like the Houston Museum, which I've not been to, but I've seen pictures, and that's almost an art gallery. Like there's no text anywhere. It is just like the name of the dinosaur pretty much on the pedestal. And so like that's the other end member is you could make it's just about seeing the specimen. We're not really going to give you very much. And I like that there's so much content there. I do wish some of the specimens were easier to photograph or kind of like take pictures with or next to or something. But otherwise, like that aside, it's one of the best new exhibits I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh no, I wasn't done, Dalton. I'm sorry.
Apologies.
There's just one more point. He's still talking, the James Napoli story. I just love also the amount of biological detail that was put into the mounts. Like most dinosaur skeletons do not leave space for intervertebral cartilage, which is a thing chordates tend to have. And like just seeing kind of the vertebrae a little bit spaced out from each other to accommodate the cartilage space that would likely have been there is great. The same with the limb bones. Like everything is accommodating soft tissues that would have been present. And it's a small detail if you don't know anatomy very well, but I think it really like it attests to the level of care put into it. That was a really long renovation process, and there's good reason for that.
I'm sorry to interrupt and piggyback, but I just want it's something that came to me, which is I think my qualm with the layout is one that I think was wholly induced by the fact that they had to put it into a pre-existing space, which is just that like it is a walk through time, and they did a great job of making it that you can jump into that at any point. So like you're not constrained by starting at like, oh, formation of the Earth, and we're going to walk all the way up through like till now. Like you can go in at any point and get the story in either direction, and there is a directionality to it. It's unfortunate that the main entrance rotunda kind of opens up as like the Cretaceous is transitioning into the Tertiary or into the Tertiary. Look at me, I'm an old paleontologist. But like at the end Cretaceous is kind of where you walk in if you come in from where the elephants are. Yes.
Sorry. You come in at basically the Ice Age.
Well,
yeah, just there like, a little bit ago.
You're looking at like the T-Rex though. Like
yes,
you can see it.
When you come in from the elephants, you are going back in time.
Yes.
Which is not how
like,
from now.
No, and then like if you want to start in what I would consider the better order of like starting from the beginning and then going forward, you kind of have to go around and like come in from the other way
through oceans.
It's purely a space thing that they had to do it that way. I wish you could enter from the rotunda and like that would be like the kind of beginning entrance, but it just doesn't. It didn't work out that way. I'm sympathetic to that.
I imagine the ability for someone walking in to see the mammoth and T-Rex in line of sight from the main rotunda might have played a factor in that.
Probably, yeah.
Because sorry, I'll wait my turn.
But that was just what I wanted to add.
I'll say that I think it is one of my favorite paleo halls I've been in. It's so good. And I think it's also, I find it really cool that it is one of the few exhibit halls I've seen that is locality based very frequently. That a lot of places are either like the AMNH where it's phylogenetically based. Yes. Or it's kind of general overall time based, where it's like just kind of walking through time. But this is one of the only places that I've seen where it's time, where it's individual ecosystem based in a lot of the specific galleries. Like I love that the T-Rex and Triceratops exhibit doesn't just have here's the T-Rex and Triceratops. If you get up close to it, you see all of these other little tiny Hell Creek critters that are all around it. There's a Thescelosaurus, there's an Edmontosaurus, I think there's a Pachycephalosaurus, I forget. But there's a bunch of other stuff that really simultaneously shows how much we know about these specific places in time. And also I think that actually the overall aesthetics and design of the whole place helps mirror that simultaneously it feels jam-packed and full of stuff, but also that there's a lot of empty spaces where it's like you looking at all these things, you're just like, it feels like there would be more here. Like, if anything, the best way I can elucidate this is if you walk over in the same museum to the living animal hall, it's one of my least favorite halls of any museum I've been to. I hate it.
One of the worst exhibits ever made. And it replaced what was an old beautiful diorama hall, as far as I remember. We have some home video footage of me at 2 going through there, and it's one of...
It's taxidermied animals in white voids. And, like, I get that what they were trying to do is, like, this is a focus on the animals, but it seems like a fundamentally wrong-headed way of going about it, while I think that simultaneously they didn't fully go 100% on that with the dinosaurs and the fossil critters, but I think it also works more for that because we don't know a lot of these minutiae about their ecosystems and everything that they were living alongside. And that kind of minimalist design of some parts of it, I think accents that. And I love it. I think it's a marvel.
I like the bone hall, the osteology hall on the second floor.
That's
I love
shit.
the osteology hall.
It's
love
so good.
that.
Now it's my turn. It's my turn.
That it is.
Now I will not claim any kind of kinship with the Smithsonian more than my colleagues, but now I will. I am actually going to do that. So I did my undergraduate and my master's in DC. So the ongoing Smithsonian renovation was something I was intimately familiar with, in that when I got there as an undergraduate, I saw the old hall right before it closed, and I had actually seen it before on a previous trip to DC. Kind of an old school paleo hall, a lot of cool stuff, kind of dark, a great Intellidont mount in the back, and the live and the kind of the fossil prep lab, which is now I think still on the second floor. It moved back down. It moved back down.
Place.
Yeah, it was on the second floor.
Oh, well, it's still in
during
the
renovation.
It's in the fossil hall. Yeah,
because they had a temporary exhibit on Hell Creek stuff, where they had a T-Rex mount, because you got to have a T-Rex. But yeah, Scott's right. It's across from the Stegosaurus mount now on the first floor, right?
Yeah.
Or the Stegosaurus in the wall, not the mount.
Yeah. And that literally took my breath away the first time I saw it.
Oh, incredible.
I was looking at the prep lab and I didn't notice it was behind me because I was like, oh, let's see what kind of extraction arms they using and stuff in there. And then I saw the reflection and turned around and was like, I didn't expect that was there. Neat.
The best Stegosaurus. I really like. I finished my undergrad before it opened, and then I was in DC for my master's too. And basically, as I finished my master's, they opened it. So I was like, there was an overlap of a month in June where I went a bunch of times. I think it's fantastic. My only real issue is, again, just like they had to work with the existing space, so there are some line of sight issues with some of the exhibits. But beyond that, like, the mounts are dynamic. Like, the poses like the Allosaurus has a great pose. There's stuff that's not like you would be surprised to see mounted. There's invertebrate stuff in the beginning, at least. Lots of fish, lots of plants, and something like there aren't a ton of them. I think there are 4 or 5 of these like micro dioramas, which are charming, but also
good.
some like really cool life-size dioramas. There's a diorama like on like the Permian extinction reef and recovery. That's one of the coolest paleo dioramas I've ever seen, and it's just tucked in the back. It's like just you're kind of come in from, you go through ocean life, and I think then Africa, and then you kind of like loop around. It's like way in the back. It's a weird way to enter, but you come around and there's like how do you make a fossilization? Then you start your walk through time. Great little dioramas, great little pieces, and then you get to and then it kind of like curves around, opens up. I love it. It's not my favorite in the United States. That still belongs to the American Museum. which is it's just hard to beat 4 halls with a good floor plan. Not that the Smithsonian's isn't good, but I do kind of like the phylogenetic approach. The walkthrough time is also good. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously, like elite, world-class renovation, fantastic. The Peabody is also very good. Plugging that again, come. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Smithsonian's because we're not working with the same. The bench, our bench isn't that deep, but it's pretty good. Yeah, I love it. It's good.
Well, I think that would be the last question, wouldn't it?
We did it.
We did
That
it, folks.
concludes the questions.
We
from
did it,
Mark.
Joe.
Okay. And because of that, I'm going to now read the names of many people. And these people, you may be curious to find out, pay us money.
Whoa.
And that's very kind of them.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to, but if you want to, do it.
But we thank you.
And we appreciate it.
We do appreciate it
Yeah.
because the support we get on Patreon just goes a huge way toward making us be able to continue doing this in spite of all of our busy schedules and the fact that we do consider it important that we are both content creators and scientists, right? Like that's what makes this channel special. And it's hard to do both of those things, but by God, we're going to do it. And so today we're very thankful for Benjamin Seepser, nickname, original username, Philip Fico, AK92, Christopher Bellis Jones, Aaron Anderson, Adam Molos, Camphibia, Dan O'Kyrus, Dinodom, King Zasshu, Max Ironpaw, Pythonic, Swamp Ape Science, Wanderer, and Wheat. Thank you to all of you guys who support us at an incredibly generous tier. And thank you to all the rest of our patrons as well, because each and every one of you goes, plays a huge role in making the Skeleton Crew continue to happen and continue to be what we hope is a positive force for science communication.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So thank you all. And we will see you next time when we talk about another set of questions that people send in a different month.
Indeed.
We're so far behind.
April.
We're fixing it.
We're fixing it.
We're fixing it. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.